Wow. Well, you look at all of those CW signals. There are tons of them. And it sounds like there are tons of them. Right now, there's the contest going on, the IARU HF Championship contest. And there are a ton of people on. I'm on 20 meters. It is about 8:30 at night in Chicago. And 20 meters is on fire. If you listen a little bit, you'll hear just tons of signals, right? So how do you know how to pick out and decipher each one of the signals so you can kind of really hear the signal that you want to really decipher? Well, what we need to do is talk about filters. And I'm just going to mute this just so we aren't distracted by the CW signals. Right now, I'm using the Flex radio system because it's a little bit easier to show what's going on with the filtering. And right now, I'm in USB upper sideband mode, which is really not quite correct if we are going to operate CW. And one of the reasons is, at least on the Flex radio system, we only have a limited filter selection, at least on the quick filters here, to choose from. And if you notice, we are on the 2.9K filter. And if you notice the bandpass here, we're pretty wide and we are able to pick up a bunch of signals in the bandpass. As we shrink this up, we go to 2.7, it gets a little smaller, 2.4, 2.1. And let's say we want to get this really strong signal right here. We really want to try to shrink the band pass up as much as possible to just get that signal in there so we can hear it. Well, the only way we can do that, and there's certainly different ways you can cue it on USB mode, but if you go to CW mode, for example, on the Flex, you'll see that we're in the 3K mode, or we have the 3K filter selected, and we are actually looking at a ton of signals all at one time. What we could do is we could start to narrow that down. See, 1K brings it down very small. 800 gets it even smaller. And if we are looking to communicate with this one person, it looks like, well, maybe 800 would be a good amount and wide enough, or actually narrow enough, for us to just hear this one signal. Let's give a little bit of a demo of what this looks like as we start to taper these filters down to try to figure out how to only hear the signal that we really care about. So let's turn up the volume here. So we can hear a ton of signals still, right? Well, that's because we are on the 3K filter. And what happens if we bring it down to 1K? All of a sudden, I can hear both of these two signals, right? I can hear that person and maybe that person, right? That person and that person. So we can still hear that person. So you know what? 1K is a little bit too wide. Let's go to 800. 800 is even better. Oh, I could still hear that person over on the right. Let's go down to 500. Wow, that sounds really good, actually. See, this person's keyed up and we don't even hear them. So I wanted to demonstrate this because, and I'm going to turn this person off for a moment. So your typical CW bandwidth filter selection, you want to have it at 500 hertz. 500 is your classic CW filter. Sometimes people like to go a little bit wider if they're scanning around like 800. But if you are maybe in a contest, you might even want to go to 400 because, as you can see, like we're talking about these two folks here that are like kind of close together. What about these two people here? Let's click on this person here and see what's going on. So you can kind of hear the clicking a little bit of that person, and a little bit low. So you can even tighten up your filters even more and go to a 250, and you won't even hear the clicking of that person down low. So that's how you can use CW filters to really fine tune what you're listening to, and it kind of helps you tune them in also. Now, the reason why there are filters that are kind of wide, like for example, 1K or even 3K, is if you're scanning around and you kind of want to listen for somebody, it will allow you to listen to, a bunch of different signals within the passband, and you can kind of tune into them a little bit easier or faster. I kind of personally like doing a 500 hertz filter, and that'll, for example, let's say I want to see if I can hear this person with this really strong signal right here. So I'll double click on that person, unmute it. So this was a DA0HQ, so Germany. And this video is not intended for you to learn CW or listen to any of this stuff. This is totally and exclusively for you using filters, understanding how filters are used. So when you're in CW mode, I would say definitely go to the 500 hertz filter mode and use that when you're scanning around. So for example, scanning around looks like this. Let's say I want to go up in frequency here. So right now I'm only hearing that person, not anyone adjacent to them at all. What I can also do is zoom in a little bit more, so we can see what the bandpass looks like right here. So there's the 500 hertz bandpass. There's somebody pretty strong, just lower than us. Oh, that's that DA0HQ still. For example, take a look at this person. And you can kind of see that their signal is about 500 hertz wide, right? Maybe a little bit more. But that's the reason why you want to use a 500 hertz filter, is because you want to make sure that you're not listening to everybody else, because that's really hard to decipher. The other thing is, if you look at what just happened, if I do the 3K filter and I capture all of these signals that are coming in, look at my S units. I'm like picking up all these signals. Somebody's at a S9. I don't even know what S unit this person is. And if you trim this down, you actually get a good representation of the signal strength of that station. Let's take a look at this person right here. Ooh, ARRL. So it's kind of neat. We're on the 500 hertz, and I'm only hearing this signal. It sounds pure and beautiful. I'm not hearing any adjacent signals, which is great. That's 1AW/3. So let's go down and see what this person sounds like. We're hearing that person and maybe somebody way down to the noise. So that was what? OM5? That was OM2. OM2HQ. So that's what filtering is all about. I was going to fire up the Yaesu FTDX 101 just to see what the filtering looks like on a traditional kind of radio and not the Flex. But I thought this would be a great way to show you what the bandpass looks like with that shaded area. and what the signals look like. So let's go over to the FTDX 101 and see what that's like. Okay, we're at the FTDX 101 MP, and as you can see, I have the filtering set to 3 kilohertz, kind of like what we did on the Flex. And you can see the bandpass here shows up in magenta, and you can see that we're actually seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 stations all at once. And I don't know if it's easier to see up on the big monitor here, but we're seeing 6 stations all at once. And if I change the roofing filter here to 600 hertz, which was close, we were using 500 on the Flex. You see how it shrunk up the bandpass there? Let's go listen to this person right here. And I can hear them purely without any other disruption from these 2 people on either side, which is pretty cool. We're doing 600 hertz, and we can do 500 hertz if we want on this radio. We can do 450, 400, which shrink it up pretty good. So you're just basically hearing pure CW tone by doing that. Let's bring it back out to 500 hertz. The interesting thing about this Yaesu is that it uses some traditional filtering technology where there's something called a roofing filter, and this is more of a non-digital filter that exists to initially filter the incoming signals, and then we can also then use some of the technology to do a digital reduction even further. You can go down to 500 hertz, 450, all the way down to 50 hertz. That probably sounds a little weird. It's almost a pure tone, but it just sounds kind of weird to me, and it kind of like it kind of makes my ears ring a little bit when it's that tight. And that's what you call it when a filter is dialed in that tight, which is, you know, very low. We want to open up the filter a little bit. And I think 500 hertz sounds great. So yeah, let's see who this is. The SP3AL something. I wasn't paying attention. SP3 something. HLM, something like that. Anyway, so that's filtering. There's another thing called shift. You can kind of like, you know, do some shifting of the bandwidth, which is a little bit outside of what I was going to talk about, but you can kind of see how you can kind of like shift the band pass left and right to grab part of that signal. Unfortunately, that person's not transmitting anymore, which I don't know why, but it would be good to hear what that sounds like. And I'm just using the shift and width on the 101 MP. Well, let's go find another signal like this one right here. So you can kind of like move it around. So like, for example, if you have a really strong signal to the left, you can kind of shift the band pass a little bit to the right or to the left. And what you're doing is you're actually listening on the edges of the band pass. So that's why it kind of sounds a little bit weird when you go to the left and when you go to the right. So let's get that back to 0. So we're right in the middle of the signal, which is great. And you'll want to do that if you're trying to pick out a signal. You want to do that instead of trying to move the large VFO knob around, because when you move this around, you want to be right on that station, because The VFO knob, wherever the VFO knob is where you're going to transmit. So you don't want to move it around a little bit over here, and you can kind of like hear them better, just slightly off frequency, because when you call them, you're going to be calling them off frequency, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that your VFO knob is right on the station like that. And then if you need to adjust anything to hear them better, adjust the width and the shift as you like it. I like 500 hertz. So that's what filtering looks like. A lot of it is digital now, although there are, of course, older rigs have crystal filters or mechanical filters in them that actually have set values. Like, for example, there's a roofing filter in here that does some pre-filtering, and we'll block it down at the 600 hertz level. The older rigs, you actually had a push button. You can actually insert a 500 hertz filter and then go even tighter to like maybe a 400 hertz filter, or wider to maybe an 800 hertz filter. But especially a lot of older rigs, you only had a selection of one. Like, for example, my FT817, I have a CW filter in there, and it's a 500 hertz filter. So when I'm listening on my 817, I don't have this luxury of selecting, what kind of width I want for my filter. I've got all kinds of ideas here, but I've only got the ability to select 500, and that's fine, and that's good, and especially doing some of the backpacking and stuff like that I like to do with that rig. That's all you really need. You're doing summits on the air or even parks on the air. You just want some basic filtering, and like I've shown, 500 hertz is probably the best. So there you go. Filtering and tuning up a CW station. Also, yes, make sure that you are on the CW mode, and not the sideband mode. Some rigs don't allow the key to key in sideband mode, and when you are in sideband mode, things look a little bit different, and what you're hearing might be a little bit different. So this is the band pass on a sideband signal. So if you're listening to somebody here, that's who you're listening to, and then when you key up, you're going to key up over here. So make sure that you're on CW mode so that you're right in the middle of the band pass, and it's right there, and you're listening to a station like this person right here. Let's see what they're saying. So he just thanks you. Said a thank you. All right, that's it. This is the IARU contest. Again, this is not intended to help you learn Morse code. This is intended to help you understand how to use filtering and how to tune into a CW station, and the importance of using the CW mode and not the sideband mode. Of course, you can wide open your filter if you want to hear a bunch of stations to try to like maybe pick one out, and maybe one stronger than the other. And if you don't have like this cool waterfall capability, sometimes that's a good way to try to find stations. If you have your filter wide open, you can hear more sets of the frequency, so you can listen for a station. So there you have it.